Good morning. Welcome to Tea Time with Amie and Bev. Here we are, another day. I say Wednesday and then I don't post this until Thursday. So just saying, we record these on Wednesdays and then I post them on Thursday. So happy Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever it is.
And good morning.
And good morning. How's it going?
It's going good. It's going good.
Awesome. What is on your heart this week?
Well, I think we talked a little bit last week how I'm paying more attention to myself or triggering myself to go within self when I notice that I'm paying too much attention outside of myself. And I'm noticing a lot of things. Like even yesterday going to the grocery store, there was a couple of people like walking around and I would hear some girl kind of whining and wanting attention and I started to pass judgment. And then I caught myself going to pass judgment. I'm like, I've been in that same place before. That I wanted the attention and all she wanted was attention. So I'm noticing things that I'm doing. So I'm just really paying more attention, not in a critical eye, but like in a neutral place of that doesn't feel good. And it's just something so subconscious, and for me, it would be almost like an attitude like, oh, she's just freaking over there whining. She just wants attention. And it's like, wait a minute. She wants attention and there's nothing wrong with that. For where she's at, she needs that attention. That's what she wants. She's looking outside of herself. And it wasn't for me to judge, it was just for me to be all right with it and acknowledge that that's been me before. That was a reflection to me. So I'm just in a place where I'm slowing down enough to pay attention. Not even just enough, I'm slowing down I am paying attention. I'm just noticing so many more things.
When you talk about that, what comes up for me, which I've had to contemplate a lot lately, is as I've been on my journey of growth and spiritual growth, expansion, personal development, whatever, that, I keep growing every day to practice. And I keep practicing and I keep learning more and I keep practicing, right? So I keep forging ahead. And when I'm teaching, I have to remember to take myself back 20 years. Because I can get in a spot thinking, everybody knows this. You already know this. So let's just talk about like where I am at today. I will bring forth that information. But I have to remember that a lot of my students are where I was. And I have to take myself back there and go, okay, this is where they're at. And here's how I can help them come forward. And sometimes that's a little difficult for me because I'm just want to share all this new information that I have. And I've even had, a couple students who I've talked to one-on-one, and they're just like, sometimes I can't even understand what you're talking about because I'm not there.
That's honest.
It's like, okay, I need to hear that.
Yeah.
I need to hear that because I gotta pull myself in where I'm at and then revert back to remember, not that I'm taking myself back to who I was, I'm just taking my mind back to remember where I started and then those steps along the way so that I can communicate and connect with those with where they're at and connect with people with where they're at. As a teacher, that's what that's what's important for me to practice is meet you where you're at.
I get that.
So, yeah, so to see somebody in a store or out and about and you're just like, oh my gosh, right? First we judge. I mean, as human, we do that. So it's like, don't, even I have judgments these days. Like it's not something I've completely let go of, but I catch myself. I'm like, oh, hey, you're judging that person. It's not your right to do that. And then I go into self-reflection. Why am I judging this person? What's showing up for me that I'm not liking about them? And how is that showing up in me? So that is a continuous practice. Whereas I've had that tool for a very long time and it's easy for me to implement it. Whereas other people, they're going to judge for, and hang on to that for a while. And then they're going to go, oh my gosh. And then self-reflect, right? Whereas in our practice, I think I can speak for you as well, is that it's more of an immediate,
Oh yeah,
like, oh my God, I just judged this person. Why did I do that? And I'm not,
exactly.
yeah. And are you hard on yourself about it? You're just like,
Yeah. Neutral, just looking at myself as if I'm watching a movie and kind of processing.
yep. And it's I find it now, I didn't like it in the beginning. Several years ago, I did not, just like, hear me when I say this, I did not like this. That when I was judging somebody, I was judging myself. If I'm criticizing somebody, I'm criticizing myself. And to turn that around and go, well, what is it in me that I'm criticizing then? What is it in me that I'm judging? Because, we're all perfect, right? We got it all together. And to turn that into self-reflection, it wasn't easy in the beginning, but now I'm just like a lot more lighthearted about it.
Which I
How about
think is awesome. I also think it's awesome what you said. I wanted to go back to you a little bit is when you said that your client spoke up and said something. God, how many times have I sat in a place and not said anything but wanted to, but felt like I was going to be judged, right? Felt like I was going to be an idiot if I said anything that, I mean, she doesn't get this, she doesn't understand. But my God, man, I've learned probably in the last, probably a few years, it's like, you got to speak up, you got to ask. And then who cares if someone else has maybe they do know it and it's not your experience, but there's lots of things that you know that are in your experience that you could benefit another when they ask questions. And we got to ask. That's a real big deal.
Yeah, I had a class, and I mean, I talk a lot in my classes about being an introvert, and then I will follow that up with saying, like, I was quiet, I was shy, I wasn't the one to ask the questions. I'd sat in the back of the classroom, hunkered down behind somebody because I didn't want to be called on, right? I followed it up with those examples, and I still had a student who did not understand what being an introvert was. So she got off the video or out of the class, and she went, and she had to go have a conversation with somebody. And she brought that up in the next session that we had together, in the next class gathering that we had. And I said, oh my gosh, I said, it's so important that you ask that during our conversation, because there might be somebody else in the class or who might be listening to this later that they don't get it either. They don't understand what introverted is or extroverted. And I said, and I know this to be true because as an introvert, I had a lot of questions, but I was too afraid to ask because I didn't want to be judged or criticized, right? And the fact is that those questions, there are probably multiple people thinking the same thing. And by you having the courage to step up and ask the question, it's going to help a lot more people as well.
And besides that, you help your own expansion, right? Because you're asking.
Yes.
You help your own expansion, your growth, your moving forward, your unstuckness, however we want to say it. There's so many different
Courage,
ways.
right? It takes courage. When you're an introvert, it takes courage to ask a question in a group of
It
people.
does. Because I never would have. Everything you said was the same. I would have been ducked down, hiding. For me, it'd be like if I knew I had to step up in front of the classroom and be like, I need to go to the bathroom real quick. I'd go to my locker, get into my alcohol that I had there, take it to the bathroom, drink, put it back, and then go back to my room so I could get up. So I totally get it. Like that was how I handled things then. Not very well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
crazy. So like I said, I'm really listening. I'm listening to the things that I'm saying in my head, not even just out loud, but a lot of the stuff that's just in my head because we always have something going, and sometimes it's not so great.
Yep. Yep. Um, we are conditioned, for one, we're conditioned from birth. We're conditioned. And it's about our habits and the way we think and our behaviors, our beliefs. And when you do something over and over and over, it just becomes a habit. So we've been practicing a lot of stuff since infancy. Whether we knew it or not, we've been practicing a lot of things since infancy. So here we are, we're 50 years old, and there's still some things I got to catch myself doing or thinking. And to think that I've been practicing this since I've been a child or a baby, and just think like it's going to change overnight. It's practice. It is consistency, focus, diligence, right? I mean, laser, like, oh, there it is, creeping in again. Okay, let's squash it right now. Instead of just letting it go, oh, there it is, but I'm gonna ignore it. Oh, there it is, but I'm gonna ignore it. No, here it is. Let me look at it right now. But people, it's just like gaining weight. I mean, it took you many days, months, weeks, years to gain 40, 50, 60, 70 pounds, right? It just, and then we want a magic pill to make it go away overnight. It takes focus and consistency and diligence, and right, it's just, you have to put in the time and effort. Some people will say you have to put in the work, but I'm telling you, consistency, diligence, focus has all got to be a part of it.
Focus is a big one for me. Because I feel like I've always been like right now I've got 4 different books going. I've been listening to spirit signs. I've been listening to some of the mind movies. I'm listening to an audiobook in my vehicle. So when I'm driving, I've got that going on. I just have a lot going on right now, but I mean, if I broke all that down, I would say it's all basically for the same thing. But before I'd be like in a million different directions. I might be reading a romance, and then I might be reading a self-help book. I might be reading, you know what I mean? It might be so many different things, so many different directions. Right now I feel like a lot of the stuff it's all in a spiritual path, so it's just all part of my focus right now.
And
But I'm just making
just as a side note, all 4 of those books you're reading are all saying the same thing in some way.
something about it, yes. So there's relevancy.
Different ways, maybe different, like I, you know, I like knowing the spiritual aspect and our connection, our direct connection to source and angels and guides and spirit. And then there's a scientific piece to it, right? And so that might be 2 different books, but they're all intertwined and bringing you to where it's important for you to be right now. Do you feel, let me ask you this though, with multiple, I'll just use the book. So multiple books, do you feel, even though it's all pertaining to this one realm for you, do you feel like you're do you feel in any way like you're scattered at all between them?
I don't know, maybe I might be a little bit, but mostly I just take like one chapter at a time for each book to kind of process whatever it is. So it's just whatever I'm doing in the moment. Because there is like 4 different books. One of them is the one you gave me, is something about being queen. You didn't give me, a loan to me. Another one is it's talking about the subconscious mind. Another one's Teutonic magic. Another one's about the Kabbalah. Well, they actually pronounce it differently with a Q. It's one with a Q. So I'm reading. They're all about growth for sure. So I'm just taking each, it's almost like, for me, it's like a moment at a time.
Awesome.
So I don't know. Yeah. It's just being present at that time for that chapter. Because sometimes I can't, some of the stuff is so, like the one it wasn't Teutonic magic, it's something else about magic, but it talks about using the runes and stuff like that. So it's a lot of information, so I can only handle a small amount of that at a time. So be present for that brief amount of time, and then go on to something else that's lighter. So
yeah. And I don't know if I shared this with you or not, but I want to bring it to your awareness because it had to come to my awareness for me to get. I was like, oh yeah, that's true. That um, I love all this stuff, all these topics we're talking about, and it gets me energized. I'm like, it's like candy to me. Like, oh, we're learning about the brain, how the brain works with the body, and it's like, and how the brain, how we don't even know everything it can do, but we know if we really get into that space that magic happens, right? And the spirit world and all this other stuff, all that excites me. Like I get energized from that information. So and that's what I teach and practice and coach and so recently it was brought to my attention that whatever you do, whatever like this all this information I incorporate in my teachings and in my coaching, and it excites me, that that is not the stuff for me to read or listen to prior to going to bed.
Oh,
I need to do something completely different. So like maybe just sit and do a crossword puzzle or read a romance novel instead of something about spirituality, right? I have to do something because it when I'm reading stuff that excites me and energizes me, it activates my brain. Like bam, I'm on like what, right? Like I just got off the most amazing roller coaster or something. But um I yeah, I can't do any of that prior to going to bed. Because then I'll lay there in bed and that's just what I'm processing and I'm thinking about. I'm like, oh my gosh, well, this is connected to this and that, right? Um, and I have been doing that for years.
gotcha.
Those are the things I read before I go to bed, right?
Yeah. Even conversation. So even having a conversation that stimulates like that, because then you go into, and it's like I realize that, but that's, but on the flip side of that, if we, so most of the time I do my readings earlier in the day, but if we can acknowledge that we can, so that's connection. You're getting connected. What you're in this, your center, you're in connection. You're connected with source, connection with source, divine, God, however you want to say it. But you're in that connection where unlimited energy just flows where we're never tired. So it's like keeping that in mind, we can use that throughout the day. When we start feeling tired, take a second to go read a paragraph or go watch a stimulating video or watch something, because that it brings you back to center. It brings you back into a balance.
Yeah. And then I mean there are practices, let me put it, there are practices that you do implement before you go to bed. So, for example, this morning I was listening to a recording and they were talking about connecting to, like your spiritual helpers, your guides, your angels, that before you fall asleep, like you sit there and you say this prayer to call them in, help you remember when you wake up and all that. So there are practices to do before you go to sleep if that, in the spiritual sense. But if it's something that energizes you, gets you like excited, then that is something you want to um, set aside at least like probably about 2 hours before you go to bed, because it just activates the brain. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that until recently when it was, I can't say that. I probably knew that. I didn't hear it in a way to receive it. And I heard it and I was like, oh.
I mean, unless you want to stay up extra.
Yeah, I do that. So anyway, I thought that was a valuable piece of information for myself. And so I thought I was able to share it,
Nice. Thank you.
whether it's for you or somebody else, right?
Right. That's
Um,
right.
but yeah, just an awareness if doing anything. So that's why they tell us, to put the electronics away at least an hour before going to bed, because activates our brain. So anything that um, flips on the switch in that brain, we want to set that aside. Give yourself some time before going to bed. So maybe, you know, some people meditate before they go to bed to bring themselves right, lower that um, energized state into a more calm and peaceful state, relaxing the body. So cool.
Cool. So recently when I'm going to sleep, I'm like just appreciating. I'm appreciating my whole day. I'm thanking God for all the ways that He surprised and delighted me that day, and I'm thanking Him for all the ways that I'm going to be surprised and delighted while I sleep and when I wake up in the morning. So it's just been just a lot of good stuff. Not to say that I don't have some down times, because at some point, you know, I would probably even say like yesterday, I caught myself in I guess I was in a tired space or trying to push myself or rush myself around, and it's like, nope, take your time and enjoy things that are going on around you. So it's like I'm really paying attention, because
Yeah.
I'm affecting a change. I'm affecting a change for me. And I feel like if it affects that change for me, like we've talked about before, then it affects a change for those around me. It affects the change of my children. It affects the change of my grandchildren.
Even your enemies,
Even my enemies. Yeah.
whether you think you have any or not,
Yeah.
you know, it could be that bully from high school. What you're doing today is going to affect that person
Yep.
wherever they
It's
are now.
energy. Yep.
Yeah. Because I mean, you're at with the information that you have now, the tools that you have now, and I just pulled bully out of the air, but you know, you clear up that energy around that bully in high school or middle school or junior high school, whatever. And because you've done that, then that that helps diminish that energetic connection because you've been hanging on to that story, right? That story's been living inside you for so long. But then when you find there have the tools and you take the time to clear that energy, and a lot of times, majority of the time, it has to do with forgiveness. And I know that's hard to hear, and a lot of people don't want to hear that. But doing a forgiveness process clears that energy and you're releasing your attachment to that experience because you no longer need to hold on to that story, but by doing that you've released them, and even though it might have happened 40 years ago or 30 years ago, like you shifted their energy as well. You may not know where they are in the world, what they're doing, or even if they're still alive, but you have in some way shifted that energy for them because you did your own work.
True. In my belief, it's true.
I wholeheartedly believe it's true, and I'm not, and, you know, I honestly, I have to say, I was one who did not want to hear about forgiveness. I was like, F to the no. I am not doing that process for this person, right? But then I'm not gonna say I gave in because I went in kicking and screaming about it, probably like a lot of people do. But when I did do the process of forgiving those who I felt harmed me, the shift in me was so amazing. And the more, and sometimes there are situations where you know you have to do that for, you have to do some form of forgiveness for a while. Like you might have to sit with it, do a process, but there's still some lingering stuff, right? So then you another time you take the time to do some more, and it might take several times for one particular situation, but each time it just got lighter and lighter and lighter. And each time I did it, I was telling that story less and less in my head. Because prior to that, the story was there on repeat every single day. And when I started releasing my attachments to that story, then it was like it was weird that my mind wasn't thinking about the story anymore. That was weird to me because it was a daily it was a daily tape in my head. And when it wasn't there anymore, I was like, what's happening? It just felt foreign. It was foreign because when I was thinking about the story, the stress shows up in my body. So then I was stressed all day. Well, my body wasn't as stressed. That was foreign to me because I didn't know what relaxed state was, right? And and but what I did start realizing was I wasn't playing that tape every day, and my body was more relaxed because I had shifted my energy around that situation. So was it an easy process? No, it was not easy. I'm not saying doing a forgiveness process is easy. It can be. Just it depends on the person and how you're stepping into that process. But in the space that I was in, it was not an easy process for me. So, and everybody's different. Everybody's going to move through it differently. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, so when you're not repeating the story, you're not keeping the story alive any longer. We're so, I think most of us in the world are so used to being in fight or flight that we operate that way. So when we don't have, that's our motivation in a lot of ways because that's what we know. And learning the opposite, it does leave you kind of feeling off, like you have to kind of find a new center or new tools. I mean, maybe that's why we started searching for tools in the first place. And the other thing was I had a problem with doing that as well as forgiving others, but forgiving myself was one of them. At first, I was like, I don't need to forgive myself or anything. Well,
What did I do?
yeah. But then it's like even in a given situation, even in a molestation or any of that kind of stuff, for me, I felt because I put so much pressure on myself, or I made myself feel like I was bad or dirty or not right, or it's just forgiving myself for all those thoughts, and that took me a while. But once I started doing it, I realized, because I still do it, I still forgive myself for things because we are so hard on ourselves, probably worse than most people are. And maybe not initially, maybe we're out in public, we blurt something out, and then we're afterwards like we're like freaking stabbing ourselves to death and just brutality. But it's like realizing that it doesn't have to be that way, and forgiving yourself because that was the way you used to respond. That was the way you responded maybe since childhood, back to the conditioning, all that stuff. We don't always know why. And that we could even go back to the whole, what was in our DNA? Why do we feel these things? I mean, we can go back, way back. But it's like, it is just forgiveness. And it's so simple. And it is hard at first. It feels hard at first. It feels foreign. It feels silly, stupid. I mean, there was a bunch of different things the way that I felt about that stuff. But afterwards, man, and the triggers that it would hit, like I would know, for me, I would know that, oh my God, I needed that because I might get angry or I might cry or whatever the situation was, but I know that I felt an emotional attachment to it that I didn't have to have anymore.
You when I was on this forgiveness path, right? I started learning about it, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna start implementing this. In that process, in the parallel of my journey was the spirituality aspect, and I was learning about reincarnation, right? And that we choose to come here, we choose to come into this body. Now, if this isn't your belief, so be it. But I believe it. I've had so many experiences to confirm like this is real, right? And so we choose to come into the physical body. We choose to come here on this earth, to this earth, to have this human experience. And when I was learning about taking my power back, so forgiveness is a process to take your power back. You're not giving so much energy and time to an experience that did happen many years ago, or even yesterday, right? Or even 5 minutes ago. That So learning, okay, I chose to come here. And through forgiveness, I want to take my power back, and I want to take responsibility of my life and what has happened in my life. Now, mind you, I was probably by then I was probably in my mid 30s when I really started grasping this. So I was sitting and I was like, okay, I'm doing this process about spirituality, about forgiveness, taking my power back, taking responsibility. So how far back does my responsibility go? And I was like, okay, well, I showed up in this experience, 2 years ago. I was really angry. Well, where'd that anger come from? And I kept going back and kept going back, kept going back. Well, of course, stemming from childhood, being born into, um, my mom married a man who he wasn't right in his head. And so he was abusive. So anger there as a child, right? Developing that anger, seeing the anger, um, as an example of living. So his behavior affected me. But then the not good enough story, feeling angry about being abandoned by my biological father before I was even born, right? So I was like, okay, well, if this goes all the way back to being in the womb, this actually goes back to me being in spirit because I chose to come here. That's my responsibility. I chose to come here for these experiences for growth and expansion. That's my responsibility. When that hit me, I was pissed. I wasn't happy about it. I was pissed. I was like, are you kidding me right now? Right? I had to process this. And then I was like, it's true. For me, it's true. Like, I chose to come into this physical body. And if I chose to come in this physical body, I chose these parents to put me in the exact situation that is going to help me grow and expand for whatever lessons I came to this earth for. It was my responsibility that I chose to come here. So that was not an easy process, thinking that, I went through abandonment and abuse and molestation and rape and all these emotions that go with all that. And then here I am in my mid 30s going, I did this? It was like, why did what? So it took me a little bit to process that, but it was like, yeah, I chose to come here. This is my responsibility. And what I do with my life is my responsibility. My responsibility. So do I sit here in all this anguish and pain from the past and hang on to that? Or am I going to take my power back, be responsible for my life, and do the things that I love and then fully enjoy them? My spirit wants to enjoy. My spirit wants to have fun. That's taking responsibility.
Nice.
And now I'm 50. And I laugh
Ditto.
and I laugh and I have fun and I love more than ever. And I'm still practicing that too.
That is a practice.
Yeah.
Because you can only do what you know. So sometimes, like I think last week we were talking about asking questions, and that's why I keep telling everyone, because that's what I'm doing all the time. So I'll be like, for me, it's like, even if I'm in a good space, I'm like, how can I get better than this? If I'm in a bad space, how can I get better than this? I don't say the opposite of what we all been trained to, but I always say, how can I get better than this? And I'm doing that on a regular basis. If I catch myself feeling like full of love and light, how can it feel better than this right now? Because I know it can. I know it can be such an experience that's beyond our words. So I'm allowing myself by asking.
And I had it's been probably a couple months ago, kind of like a business mentor said, how good are you going to let life get? And in order to let life get any better than it is right now, you have to take responsibility of yourself and your power and your mind and your emotions, your physical well-being, your spirituality. It's like, it's a whole package.
It is.
And how good are you going to let life get? I'm like, wow, if it gets better than it is right now, That's super exciting to me.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because it's like I had a client yesterday, so I've been asking that question of myself, how I'm better than this. And it's like I had a client yesterday. She just got back from a vacation, and she just said that it was just the most wonderful vacation. And she's like, my God, she says, if I get any more relaxed than I already am, I don't even know what I'll be doing.
Right?
She's in such a good space. So it's like it's another way of it being shown to me. So that's
Yeah.
what I mean. So when we ask these questions, be aware of everything. It doesn't mean it's going to be directly something you experienced, but it wasn't my experience, because it was somebody else's experience that she was explaining to me. So it gave me a different perspective. And then it's like, you're going to get there as,
Oh, you muted yourself. You're gonna get there. What?
sorry, I got a call coming in. You're
Oh,
going to get there as fast as if everyone talks about, like, I wanted to learn all the spirituality, I want to do all this stuff and blah, everything. So at one time, but you can only go as fast as you can go. You can only go as fast as you're allowing yourself to perceive, or whatever you've got pulling yourself backwards, that you're still maintaining, the stuff that we've talked about, the subconscious stuff that we've been doing since we were children, or since before, that we're kind of holding ourselves back. We can only get there as fast as we let ourselves get there. So the more that we can just be in a space of being, the more we can be in a space of being quiet and not pushing against, the better everything gets, the
and I
faster everything goes.
And I want to point out that you were asking the question, even though it was an internal inquiry, you're
Yes.
asking the question. And when you're in that space of asking the question, then you are open for a solution. She could have, if you weren't asking that question and she came in and she said that same statement, it wouldn't have resonated with you the way it did now, because you were asking.
Yes. So I'm asking all day long for, I'm not like walking around like, oh, I want $1 million. I want this, I want that. I'm like asking for more information. I'm asking for knowledge. I'm asking to be shown how things feel. If love is so intense, let me feel what that love feels like. And I know there's so many different layers, and it feels different from person to person, or from thing to thing, or even looking at an art piece, to feel that connection. There's so many aspects of it. So I just keep asking. I'm asking and asking all the time.
Mm-hmm. I just want to give you a side note. Be careful with that. You might have experienced this yourself. When I first started on this journey of learning about spirituality and reincarnation and how the brain works and hypnosis and regressions and like I wanted to know, I wanted to soak it all up, right? Chakras, our energy field, using pendulums, doing card readings, psychic mediums. Like I was like in this world, like I said, like I was a little kid in a candy store. I was like, I want to soak all this up, and I had information coming to me so fast. It seemed like every direction I went, I was like, read this book, read that book, watch this, do this, do that. I was like, and I got overwhelmed. And I told the universe, I was like, okay, y'all, I physically cannot read this fast. So we got to slow this down. I know I said I wanted all this, but we got to slow this down. So just be aware that when you start asking questions and you're like, I just want to know it all, it will come very quickly. And then you're just, for me in the past, if I get overwhelmed, I shut down. So it was coming to me so fast, like I just put everything away. Like I can't do this too much. And then I would go and I'd pick up a book and I'd start reading it, and then I'd get sucked back in, and then all the information would, like I went through this roller coaster of wanting this information. So just be aware that when you ask, when you do start opening up and asking questions, the information can come as long as you're present to receive the answers. Be mindful of what you ask for. We put it that way. Be mindful of what you ask for, because it can come so rapidly. I've had things come to me so fast, it actually scared me.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't that it was scary. It was just amazing to me how fast it came. Because I hadn't experienced, well, I probably did, just wasn't aware of it. But when I was aware, I'm very mindfully aware. And when I ask a question, I know the answer to be true, like it's going to come, right? The faith, it's coming. But in the beginning, when I started asking these questions for information or guidance or whatever, and it came like fast, it freaked me out. So now I'm just like, oh, yay, right? I didn't have to wait 6 months to get the answer. I got it in a couple days, right?
It's true.
So again, we just come back to it was foreign because I hadn't practiced it before. Now that I've been practicing it, now it's like, you didn't answer me within the hour, so why am I waiting this long for your answer? Now I'm impatient. I asked the question, where's the information?
Yeah, I just ask it and just be present. It's gonna come to you when you're ready to hear it.
It's true. And I'm just being playful with it, and I know that, and I get it.
Okay.
But whereas before, like a prayer, people say prayers,
Yes,
and then they think, well, God's not listening to me. I didn't get my answers. I didn't get my help, or whatever it might be. And the fact is that we are getting thousands of messages every single day, but we are not present to receive the message. We're too busy in our head. And then because we weren't present, we didn't get the messages, then we blame. Well, God did this to me, or they did this to me, or they're not helping me, or whatever. When the fact, if you took the time to realize, like, somebody came into your life at an exact moment, but you denied their help.
exactly.
Right. And I don't know if you've seen the memes lately on Facebook, but the one of them recently was so funny, is like, can you imagine the support groups our angels have for us? They're just like, oh my God, I send her messages all day, every day. She's not getting it. And I don't know. Like, our angels have support groups.
That's funny.
So it's got to be super comical. I find the humor in it now, that I think, what is our universe, our team, our angels, guides, spirit guides, ancestors, loved ones, whatever, like, they're looking down on us, knowing what they know in spirit, right? Spirit is all knowing, and looking down on us going, what are you doing? I sent you this help. What are you doing?
Just like blocking, it's just like when you start talking about some of the stuff that we do when we're in that space, we start passing blame, and it's like all that whole time we're not even open to the information. We're actually blocking the information when we're repeating that story over and over and over in our head again about why things aren't working out for you, or why things are the way they are, or you're blocking yourself from receiving the information the whole time. It's if you're not allowing, you're not it's like putting a dam up for the energy flow, and all of a sudden you put the dam up, you put the wall up, now you can't get anything to come in.
And you
So
can't have two thoughts at one time. So if you're thinking
yeah,
about the past, the information that the information that you asked for can't come in. There's no space for it to come in, to filter in.
because it's flowing presently, and you're in the past. It's flowing right now. It's not back then.
Yeah. And so, lucky for those that are listening, they're getting this information now. It took us years to learn because we didn't have this information readily available. Right now, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Information is everywhere. But for whatever reason, and you may never know, but whatever reason is, you asked a question. Beverly and I are here having these conversations, answering your questions, even though Beverly and I are just having conversation.
True.
But you could listen to one of our recordings over and over and over, and you're going to hear something differently each time. So typically our recordings are about an hour, but you could listen to the recording, but you have to understand that even though you're listening to something, you have a moment where you get, squirrel, like, oh, I got to go to the store after this. Well, in that moment where you thought, I have to go to the store after this, whatever played on the recording that you were listening to, you completely missed. And then you're going to intently listen again for a few more minutes, and then you're going to have another thought. So whatever's being said on the recording, you've missed, right? So we have to understand that that happens. Even in reading a book. Sometimes I'll be reading a book and it's like I read the words, but I have no idea what I just read. So I'm like, okay, where did I just go? I thought about something. I totally missed whatever I just read. So I go back. There's been times where I've had to go back 3, 4, 5 times because my mind is over on something else. So it took me a while to grasp that's what we do. And so, and also when you listen to, like, listening to the recording, or anything else, you're going to get what you need in that moment. The information you need in that moment is what's going to resonate with you. Well, because you received that piece of information that resonated with you, and then you go about your day or week and you come back and listen to the recording again, you're going to get the next pieces that resonate with you. And you'll hear what you need to hear in that moment. And what you heard a week ago in that same recording, you may not hear it again. Even though nothing changes in the recording, right? Have you ever read a book and then went back and read it and go, I think they rewrote this book, and since it's been sitting on my shelf because I don't remember reading this.
Yes, I have.
We are interesting beings.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or even listening to the audio version of it, because some things I didn't hear. And there's been times that even listening to a YouTube, it could have been Abraham. And if I was listening to it, it's like, oh, I missed it. I need to rewind it. I play it again, and I still miss it. It's like I do it like 3 or 4 times, I still miss it. And finally, I'm like, I just gotta let it play through, because I'm not supposed to hear it at this time, or maybe I didn't receive it, or wasn't going to receive it yet, or maybe I was already past it. Yeah.
I've done that too.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we are. What's funny is that we live life just because, again, because of our programming, we live life trying to be perfect. Everything needs to be perfect. But even just what the humor that has been brought in with this session, if you were to apply the humor more and more in your life, you would understand how really, I call us crazy. I'm like, as human beings, we are crazy. We're crazy. Because we're living life thinking we're going to get things perfect. Everything is going to be perfect. When it's not perfect, we get angry. When we get angry, it damages relationships, right? I mean, it's just this domino thing. But the way we perceive our being, our life, isn't at all what it was meant to be. So we're living from a false perception, false precept, is it precept? False precept or false perception? I don't know the word. But we're living, we're less like we're living our life looking at it through the eyes of someone else. And we're not living our life through the eyes of our spirit. And I think if we lived our life more through the eyes of spirit, dropped into our heart, and lived from our heart space more, then we would realize how amazing life really is. And even with what we're experiencing right now, and in this global experience, Everything is perfect. From a spiritual perception, from spirit's perception, everything is perfect.
I agree.
So I personally, I just say we're crazy. Some people may not like that. That's okay. That's the way I see it right now.
Yeah. Just got to be lighter.
And ask the questions.
Yeah.
Ask the questions. By asking, you're allowing yourself to be open to a solution or to the answer. If you don't ask, you're going to stay in blame mode, really. Stay in blame mode that this keeps happening to me. Life isn't happening to you, life is happening for you. It's what you do with the information that you gain.
So one of the questions could be like, how can I live my life happier? What does happy feel like? Because sometimes we think we have an idea that, I am happy. Well, you don't seem very happy.
Not with the resting bitch face, you're not.
That's right. So that's why I ask myself, what does that feel like? What does that look like? How do I live like that on a daily basis? Those are kind of questions I ask. I'm not even asking for all the knowledge of the tarot or any of that stuff. For me now, I feel like it's like if we want information, it's right. All we have to do is be present, and it's right there. It's right there. If you want knowledge, be present. Yeah, it's all the information's right there. But we got to get to this place of allowing, asking the questions, letting things be, letting yourself receive the answers, but asking all kinds of questions because I don't know how a lot of things feel. I just know what I felt my whole life. I don't know what it feels to feel differently.
And I agree with that. I had to learn. There are some emotions I had to learn. I was in such an angry, guilty, shameful space for so long. That's what I knew. So what did it really feel like to feel love or loved, accepted, compassion, right? It was foreign, seems to be my word of the day. It was all foreign to me. I had to learn. So whether it's seeing it through even like a Hallmark movie, right? Two people who are in love. It's like, oh, okay, well, I can see that. And what's compassion, right? I had to learn that. And so you find the models that can show you just through observation, or teachers who can teach you, books where you could read about it and implement. So yes, there are emotions that I feel I either I didn't understand, or I didn't have the concept of, and I had to learn it. But I didn't learn it until I started asking, well, what is compassion? Right. What does it really mean to say I am loved or I am love? What does it really mean to feel accepted? So
well, how does it feel to love unconditionally? Just like these are the kind of questions. If I feel an emotion or I hear about someone talking about something or whatever, I start asking questions about those things because it does feel foreign to me. I don't comprehend it. I don't know that I fully felt that. And if I have, I could probably feel it even stronger. So how?
And love starts from within. So again, come back to that heart space and spirit is love. And we start there. Start connecting to your spirit, your inner spirit. And it's a practice. So people who watch our videos or who has been in my classes, maybe this is true for you as well, is that there's like, well, I'm just not where you're at. I'm just not where you're at. It's kind of like what I was talking about earlier. And I tell them, you are where I was. I just have the tools that help me be where I am today. And so remembering that your teachers started somewhere. And even if you follow like Wayne Dyer in his books, you can see that how he evolved from all the anger he had towards his dad to the other side of the spectrum to be in complete unconditional love for his dad. There was a process. There was many years of processing. But it's the same for Bev and I, is that we have been implementing these tools for quite some time, and we may seem like we got it all together, where there are still things we struggle with. There are still things we are still practicing every single day. The difference is we've been practicing it so much that that is a habit. That is our habit. Practice it now. Practice it now. No, don't wait until the anger is out of control and then practice. I'm angry right now. How am I going to shift this energy right now, not 3 or 4 days from now? So we're just remember that Bev and I still have things we're practicing with and on, and tools we implement every single day. We are just in the habit of implementing them quicker. And that comes with practice.
It does.
It's a practice. So, any other comments, my dear, before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's pretty much it for today.
For today. Awesome. So thank you so much for being with us on Tea Time, and we will be back next week. Have a fabulous week.
Yes. Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Enjoy. That's right.
In spirit, enjoy.
Love your face.
Love your face.